38 Special Plus P FBI load. And what that is a 158 grain lead semi-wad cutter hollow point moving at a plus P pressure velocity. So today I loaded some bullets that one of my Patreon supporters, Hillbilly Scholar, sent over. And those are the 158 grain Hornady lead semi-wad cutter hollow points. Very cool bullets here. You know, they have knurling around the whole bullet with wax in that knurling. So you can pretty much set the depth wherever you want in seating rather than have a specific crimp line. So that can be an advantage to some people. I did load these, however, to the book data overall length. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to test these with power pistol powder, and that's what I used last time with some Zero brand bullets he sent over. And that test, I did not get very good hollow point expansion. So we're thinking, you know, with the Hornady bullet that might be a little bit softer, we might get some better performance. So with both of these, I actually trimmed the brass on all these. I normally don't do that, but Hillbilly Scholar also sent over a brass trimmer, and I hadn't been trimming brass because mostly my reloads are mostly a 38 special, so I didn't really see the need, but I did trim them down all to the correct length, 1.145, and then I loaded these up with 6 grains of power pistol, which is by the book. And then, you know, with one of these though, I used the small pistol primers, which is by the book, but with some of these loads, I used small Magnum pistol primers. So what I want to do is I want to see if there's a difference between the Magnum pistol primers and the traditional pistol primers, you know, just over the chronograph, just to see if there's a difference there. And then whatever is more consistent is what I'm going to do in my ballistic gel test. So I did bring out my 4-inch barrel Smith & Wesson 686, my 3-inch barrel Taurus 856, and my 2-inch barrel Taurus 605 to do this test. And like before, I'm not going to use the 3-inch barrel for the ballistic gel test unless I have to, because it is kind of hard to get a lot of shots in one ballistic gel block. So I plan to use the 2-inch barrel and the 4-inch barrel for the actual ballistic gel test, because, you know, if we get good performance out of this, obviously we're going to get good performance out of the 3-inch barrel. But if this happens to fail for hollow point expansion and this one does not, well, then I'm going to pull out the 3-inch barrel and see what we get here. So we're going to run these over the chronograph here, some with some standard primers and then some with some Magnum primers. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So I'm going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are. No denim in the way or anything like that that could potentially clog a hollow point. Then I'm going to do a real world simulation, 4 layers of denim on this first 3-inch piece that represents hitting a pectoral muscle. After that, we're going to have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and another 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard at the back to represent hitting back ribs. So we'll do a plain clear ballistics shot, then a real world simulation shot. And by the way, clear ballistics is roughly a half representation of the density of flesh. So 3 inches and 16 inches is more like 1.5 inches and 8 inches in an actual living target. So we're really trying to simulate a 9.5-inch individual with ribs and that real world simulation. So we'll do a plain clear ballistic shot, then a real world simulation shot, and then I will shoot at the steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, so I have all my rounds that are loaded with the standard pistol primers in brass cases, and all the ones loaded with Magnum primers I put in nickel plated cases so that I could easily tell them apart. So I'm going to go gun by gun here and see if there's a difference between the standard primers and then the ones with Magnum primers in here. So first up, we'll see what we get in the 4-inch barrel, 6 grains of power pistol, overall length 1.44. So let's see what we get here with our standard primer for a 4-inch barrel. 1065, 1011, 1070, 1060, 1003, 1031. Now let's see what we get here with some Magnum primers. We'll see if that changes the velocity at all. But otherwise it's the same load, just different primer. 1009, 1054, 1067, 1065, 1057, 1080. So I think that the Magnum primer, while there was some, big variance there in velocity, I think the Magnum almost seemed a little more consistent here. Not a big difference though. So we'll move on here to our 3-inch barrel. Same exact test. We're going to do the standard primers and then the Magnum primers after that. So let's see what we get in our 3-inch barrel. Standard primers. 915, 1053, 1032, 1022. This gun, like I've been saying this for a long time, this gun does not shoot right. I keep sending it to the tourists and they keep saying they're fixing it, and they send it back and it's in the same condition. Now we'll try our Magnum primers and see how these do. $10.22. 989. These are shooting sideways. 1034. 955. All right, so I'm not even going to use this. I don't trust this revolver at all because I'm seeing a keyhole shot and I know that's this gun. I know it. Now we got our 2-inch barrel here. Same test. Standard primer and Magnum. Let's see what this does. That's odd. Let me load up some more. All right, I have some more loaded up. I'm not sure, what's causing the error to read now, but I'll aim a little bit lower. 873. 931. Let me back it up because I think it's just there's too much smoke out of this short barrel. It's going over the sensors and then it's blocking the ability for it to pick up the bullet. All right, I'm back a couple yards more, about 7 yards. Standard primers here. 925. 905. 939. 937. 847. That was not consistent at all. Magnum primers. 896. 902. 914. All right, so even though that was only 3 shots, I'm going to say I think that in both the 4-inch barrel and the 2-inch barrel, our Magnum primers were actually a little bit more consistent, and that's the opposite of what people were telling me. So I think for the ballistic gel test, I'm going to use the ones with the Magnum primers, but all things considered, I'm not seeing even that big of a difference. So let's hit our ballistics gel block. I'm going to do the 2-inch barrel and the 4-inch barrel and see how these Hornady bullets will do. All right, we'll do our first shot in the plain clear ballistics. No denim in the way to potentially clog a hollow point. No rib simulation to slow down its penetration. I did put the chronograph up in front of this gel block. Hopefully that'll give me a read, but with so much smoke it may not. So let's see what we get with our 4-inch barrel on our plain clear ballistics gel shot. (1,058 feet per second). Set that with our 2-inch barrel. 939. Let's go take a look. All right, so I completely lost that bullet. Let me try again. 904. All right, I didn't think this was going to happen, but we didn't get an expansion with the 2-inch barrel, just like with the 0 brand bullet. So I'm going to run one with the 3-inch barrel. See what this gives us. 1018. Let's go take a look. So very, very interesting performance here. You know, despite what this looks like, these shots are not in the same channel. You know, when you're looking at it from this way, you're not seeing it from the top where they're 2 different channels. It just blocks the other one. But what we got with our 4-inch barrel, and I cannot tell if these are expanded at all. The only one I could tell was not expanded was from that 2-inch barrel because I can see it, but the other 2 I can't see. So I don't know if they're expanded or not, but with our 4-inch barrel, we got 17 3/4 inches of penetration. With our 2-inch barrel, we had 16 1/4. And with our 3-inch barrel, we got 17 1/4 inches of penetration. So interesting results there. Let's put on our denim, put in our rib simulation, and see how these compare in our real world simulation. All right, our real world simulation, 4 layers of denim followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics that represents our pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiber board that represents hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, then another 1/4 inch medium density fiber board at the back to represent hitting back ribs. So I'm going to try to get 3 shots in here, and you know, it's always difficult to do this because bullets never go in a perfectly straight line, or very rarely do. So 4-inch barrel, see how I can do it this. 1,000 feet per second. All right, 3-inch barrel. There's a chance I'm going to hit that other bullet just because the thing arced up at a weird angle because it didn't expand. 3-inch barrel. 984 feet per second. All right, 2-inch barrel. Let's see what this does. 943 feet per second. Let's go take a look. We didn't catch that bullet, so let's try it one more time. 2-inch barrel. 904 feet per second. Let's go take a look. All right, so I saw that the 3-inch and the 4-inch actually were not expanded, and the reason why I took another shot with the 2-inch barrel, even though I didn't catch it, was because 4-inch barrel through our rib simulation, tumbling. 3-inch barrel, tumbling. A 2-inch barrel was not tumbling with that shot. So that had the only one that had the chance of getting expansion, but then I took another shot and it's tumbling here too. So every one of these bullets, looks like from my view here, failed to expand. They just tumbled through terribly. I had super high hopes for these bullets, thinking they seemed soft. But even at well over 1,000 feet per second, no expansion. They arc up. All of them arc up, which is weird. But it does make sense when they're tumbling, because when you start to tumble, obviously you can go up at weird angles, and every one of these is tumbling. So our 4-inch barrel, we went to 14 inches. Our 3-inch barrel went to 17 1/4, which I think is exactly the same as it got without the MDF. And our 2-inch barrel went to 15 inches. So while all of these got pretty deep penetration and they did not over penetrate and they did tumble, you know, so they did get good, decent terminal ballistics, which would cause a lot of damage from tumbling, it's so inconsistent that I could never recommend this particular bullet. And even in the first 3-inch piece here, it's just very apparent that a lot of these are going in sideways, like right here. That's for sure going in sideways. As is this 4-inch a little bit here. So it's just very inconsistent with how it enters the target, just all over the place, inconsistent. So I'm really disappointed here. I was hoping to see some fantastic performance, and this is terrible. So let's pull these out of the block. We'll take a close-up look at them, then I'll shoot our steel, see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets, and I did want to show one of these firearms here. A lot of people ask about leading, and with these particular bullets, I mean, it might be kind of hard to see in there. There's leading on the cylinder face. There's leading on the forcing cone, but there's not the type of leading where like your rifling is missing. So it's like, that wouldn't account for the bad accuracy. It's just a little bit of average leading, which happens with lead bullets. So definitely not something that would cause all this with the accuracy. So very interesting results here. Our plain gel shots here, our 4-inch barrel, our 3-inch barrel, and our 2-inch barrel. Our 4-inch barrel actually got really good expansion through plain gel. Looks pretty decent. As does the 3-inch barrel, almost as big. Really big, good expansion. Then when we go to a 2-inch barrel, we're probably 50 feet per second lower, right hovering around that 900 feet per second mark. And these don't expand at that velocity. But it's not just a velocity thing either. Let me show the ones going through our real world simulation here. So our 4-inch barrel, our 3-inch barrel, our 2-inch barrel. So going through our real world simulation, the only one that expanded was through our 3-inch barrel, which is a lower velocity than the one through the 4-inch barrel. Like, what is going on? And it's just really poor stabilization of these bullets. I've seen this type of performance with like PPU ammo where just, you can tell it's going in skewed, it's hitting the rib simulation of the bending, and then it's going through sideways. Our 3-inch barrel, for random unknown reasons, it hit straighter and expanded. So this would be acceptable performance in my mind if the rest of them performed like that, but they didn't. And then our 2-inch barrel did the same thing as the 4-inch barrel, except it didn't bend as much because there's less energy there. So just overall completely inconsistent performance with these. What I want to see is really big expansion. I'm fine with getting limited penetration if it expands massive, or I'm fine with if they only mushroomed a little, didn't get very big, but they all consistently did the same thing. What I'm not fine with is some of them tumbling, some of them expanding. You never know what you're going to get. Not very good in my mind overall. So that's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, 14 yards from the target. So I'm going to fire a little bit slower than what I normally do from here. I just want to show, what this 3-inch barrel revolver does for me. I know that's not the point of this video, but I've had a lot of people say, it's all you, bro. You're pulling those shots because you don't know how to shoot double action. So I'm going to fire with my 4-inch barrel, my 2-inch barrel, and then fire with the 3-inch barrel and see if there's a difference here. So 14 yards, which is 42 feet. So I'm going to fire kind of slow and just see where these things group for me. All right, so that first shot was a little bit to the left, so I kind of aimed at it, but you can see that, 42 feet, most of that grip's about a fist size there. 2-inch barrel. Let's see what this does. All right, so those are actually shooting quite a bit to the left as well, which is weird. But let's see what this 3-inch barrel does for me. So I had more misses with this. Very interesting. Let me back it up from some distance just for fun. I'm just going to fire a few rounds for fun, and then we'll talk about these loads. All right, 75 yards from the target, just for fun, and just to kind of see if there is any difference in these barrel lengths for me, for accuracy. I mean, I might miss every one of these, but another thing about these bullets is it's possible that they're not really meant for getting expansion, even though they're hollow points. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but sometimes bullet companies do make hollow points that are meant just for target shooting, so maybe that's what these are. But you know, there wasn't really anything listed on these bullets of what they're meant for. So let's say I can do it with our 4-inch barrel from 75 yards, 225 feet. It's kind of funny, I was unsure of myself with those first 3 hits, but those last 3 I had that dialed in for my stability and trigger press, and I thought for sure I'm going to hit every one of those, and those are the ones I missed. It's interesting. 3-inch barrel, see if I can do it with this. So I basically saw all of those hit in the same spot, about 4 or 5 feet high and left, which is kind of weird. 2-inch barrel. Let's see where these go. Again, these are all, every one of these bullets actually shot to the left out of all of these guns a little bit. They were worse out of the snubs than they were out of the 4-inch barrel. And I know that's not just me, because a lot of times I'll shoot from here or from any distance. I'll hit all my rounds to the right. So I think it's just the length of these projectiles and the rifling of these guns, just the way they're coming out. They're just all wanting to shoot to the left, and I see that sometimes. I know sometimes beginners who heard something and they've only been shooting for like 2 months, they'll be like, bro, your trigger control isn't right, so they're all hitting to the left, and they'll have this diagram with target where you have to, you're not gripping and doing this. Like, sometimes loads will do this. They'll not hit to the point of right aim and impact. So what I'm seeing with these particular bullets is not good. Not good at all. This is kind of the similar performance that I've seen with like PPU, PMC type lead hollow points, where I've seen them hit the target and curve through it and go through my rib simulation sideways. I've seen the exact same thing with these Hornady bullets. I honestly thought these Hornady bullets were going to be fantastic, get massive mushrooming, kind of like a buffalo bore. Not even close, not even remotely close. And the velocities we were working with were plenty fast enough to get that. You know, you can get reliable hollow point expansion with a lead hollow point starting at maybe 850 feet per second. So even out of the snub, we're hitting well over that. And with the 4-inch barrel, we're hitting, you know, mid 1050-ish. And we're still not seeing expansion. Something's up there. So part of it is the way the accuracy actually tells you a little bit about the terminal ballistics. They're all shooting left. They're all shooting high. And that's an effect that's going to happen even this far from the muzzle. It's going to be amounts that are too small to even measure, but that's just enough that when they hit that target, just a little bit skewed, it completely prevents the ability for that nose to flatten flat and straight and then peel out, because it's going up just that little bit. And that also accounts for, you see it in the gel, they're going up like this. So every one of these bullets is hitting like that, and even though it's a lot of velocity, it can't overcome that. So these bullets are a little bit weird in my opinion here. Not great performance overall. So, you know, getting bad performance isn't the worst thing in the world. It's one of those things that you kind of got to know. You kind of got to do it to know. And if you do enough testing, you know, you don't get bummed out by this. You just, you know, you add it to the list of things that don't work versus the list of things that do work. And these don't work. So again, thank you to Hillbilly Scholar for sending these over. They were fun to load up and shoot. And now we know. So that's what you get. That's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like. And thanks for watching.